Hi everyone, and Eahora. Eahora, I'll send you an email with this link in it. So if you want to watch it, you can. This is the Eahora AM100. This is my 2,000 mile review. It took me 10 months and 3 weeks. So about 11 months to put 2,000 miles on. I wasn't sure about Eahora to start with. Supposedly, the bike had a regeneration feature where if you were going downhill, not pedaling at over a certain speed, in pedal assist 0 or 1, it would regenerate electric back to the battery. And I bought the $100 and some color display that tells me how many watts is going in or out of the battery. And I got the bike and I tried everything and I just could not get that to work. And I emailed Eahora and they told me, no, we don't have that feature anymore. Now that was their biggest bragging and selling point. Even in the manual that came with the bike, you open the cover and page 2 and 3 was all about that feature. Now I don't know if they just couldn't get those motors anymore and decided to quick buy a bunch of these to keep selling bikes or what. But after I emailed them and asked them about that, then all the stuff on the website about that started disappearing. I noticed that when I was going up hills, I would get an error message if the motor was pulling too many watts. And, I had no idea what was causing it. It could have been the new motor not working with the controller or the battery or I didn't know. And so I emailed Eahora and, they had me troubleshoot different things and try different things. And I still have 2 or 3 videos on YouTube of the troubleshooting process that we went through. And, they got back to me right away and, were very helpful. And we finally figured out that it must be the display that's bad. And they sent me another display and that fixed the whole problem. And this is only their 3rd anniversary now. So I think maybe it just took them a while to get into the rhythm of things and to get their phone support people up to speed, where they knew what people were talking about when they called. And but their customer service was excellent, for troubleshooting a problem, and they got back to me right away. And Eahora, one of the things I would like to see is if you would have all the parts for the bike, the bikes that you sell on your website. Especially stuff that wears out, brake pads, chains, tires, things like that. Even all the other parts would be nice that, people could just order it and know that it's going to fit. I checked my brake pads and they're still good yet. They're getting down pretty good. But I will replace them. I did order some, but I had to take these apart and compare them with a picture, so I would know what I was getting, because there's nothing anywhere that tells me what kind of brake pads these are. The chain, I have a chain checker, and it has 2 notches. And when it falls into the second notch, then you should replace the chain. And I checked it after 2,000 miles, and the chain doesn't even fall into the first notch yet. So the chain that came on the bike is of excellent quality. Now my tires are getting wore down, which is to be expected after that many miles. You can see that there's not much tread on the back one. There's a little more tread on the front one. Now, I did have 2 flat tires so far. I had them both at the same time. I ran over some glass on the side of the road, and I didn't see it in time to miss it. And these tires with the knobbies, you know, they really look impressive. But where there's not a knobby, that rubber is paper thin. You know, not quite that bad, but almost. And, you know, the glass I ran over was all crushed glass, and just a little shard, almost looked like a needle. You know, missed the knobby and went in through the tire and into the tube. Now, what I did when I replaced the tubes was I put Mr. Tuffy tire liners in. And that was, probably 1,500 miles ago, and I haven't had any trouble since. I do notice now that I have some motor noise. If the motor is calling for 750 watts or so, I notice it has a whining noise and even a little vibration in the bike. So I don't know if the motor's going bad or what. If it does, I'll make another video and let everybody know. Also, the batteries here on the floor, I have a tour pack that fits on my seat post, and both of my extra batteries will fit into that. I have a blue 20 amp hour battery, and I have a 14 amp hour battery, which is an extra one that comes with the bike. Now, I have a controller down here, and what it does is it lets the battery power go into the motor from both batteries, but it doesn't let power from one battery go into the other. You know, if I have to charge the batteries, I have to charge them separate. I can't charge one battery and have it charge the other one also. Now, what that controller box does is it will let me hook my 20 amp hour battery up and the 14 amp hour battery that is in the bicycle, and I can hook them up together. Now, what it does, it will drain the 20 amp hour battery down until it gets to 14 amps. Then it will draw equally off of both batteries that are hooked up. And that gives me about an extra 5 miles, because it's not draining each battery separate, it's draining them together, so it's only pulling half the current out of each battery. And the slower you drain a battery, the longer it'll last. So with the 20, I can fit the 20 amp hour and the extra 14 amp hour battery in the pack, and I can hook the 20 amp and the 14 amp together. Now, with the 20 amp and the 14 amp hour battery hooked together, I can get about 105 miles. Now, that's on a rail trail, and where it's mostly level. With the 3 batteries together, I should be able to get a range of between 140 and 150 miles. with the 20 amp hour and one of the 14 amp hours, I can get about 105 miles out of those two together. And then I have to switch the 14 amp hours around and put the good 14 amp hour in the bike, and then I can keep going. Now I can do all that, or I can hook each of them up separate. I can just run on the 20 amp, or I can run just on the 14 amp. But that costs me about 5 miles of range by doing that. Also, you know, that my chain is good yet. You know, as far as my review for the bike, you know, my chain's good. My brake pads are still good, but I think I will change them before spring. It's December almost now, so I won't ride too much over winter. Not any long rides anyway. The furthest I've gone in a day is 128 miles. Now that was on the Pine Creek Rail Trail in Pennsylvania. And my second 14 amp hour battery was not quite down to 50% yet. You know, so, you know, I figure 140 to 150 would be my range for all three batteries. And I carry all three batteries with me at the same time if I'm going, you know, that distance or close to it. A lot of my rides are 60-mile rides or better. I only ride on rail trails and on the road. I don't do any, you know, really rough mountain biking with it. You know, I did extend the handlebars, you know, a little higher, and I changed the seat because that seat is a little more comfortable for longer rides. But I get a lot of compliments on the rail trails and all. I like a bike that looks like a bike and not one that's foldable or looks, you know, like half a scooter or something. This bike gets a lot of compliments and a lot of attention. I did take my throttle off. A lot of the rail trails in Pennsylvania don't want anything on the trail that's self-propelled. You know, no class 2 bikes or scooters or one wheels even. So, but I've never had anybody ask me about that or question it. But just to be on the safe side, I took the throttle off. Now, I do carry the throttle with me in that pack, just in case the chain would ever break, or I'd have a trouble with, you know, the gear or anything. You know, I can still hook my throttle up, and that'll still get me where I'm going. So that is my 2,000 mile review. You know, it's well worth the money. You know, I wish you did have more stuff on your website. You know, more parts that, you know, people could buy and know they're getting the right parts. Also, Eahora, if you're still listening, if you ever get a battery that has bad cells, I would like to have one. I don't want to buy a new one and then cut it up and take it apart and tear it all apart. But I would like to get one that's bad and take and cut the metal and fabricate it and weld a case that would fit in this triangle here. You know, I get my own 18650 cells, and I think I could get a 28 amp hour battery to fit in that space. You know, and that's double the 14 amp hour that comes with it. And I think that would be neat to try. But like I said, I don't want to buy a brand new one and then take it apart and cut it up and everything. So you have my email address. If you ever get a battery that's bad, you know, please let me know. I'll pay for shipping or whatever to get it to me. So that is my 2,000 mile review. If anything happens to the motor or I have any trouble, I will let you all know. So, okay, thank you and goodbye.